So the 16-page economic history of the world, and these kinds of very short review articles are honestly a godsend when you're starting to write an essay like this, and you need to kind of situate yourself in a geography of what the literature is like, and also what kind of facts and potential arguments you could be making. Don't be afraid of using things like Wikipedia when you start to read a text like this, or when you start to answer a question like this. So, on another note, while the John Locke competition doesn't need you to have citations, it's very important you still credit who has written this. So remember, it's Clarke writing in 2007, and while this doesn't have page numbers, you should always have the habit, if you copy and paste something, of writing down a page number that it comes from. So very beginning, you can see that there's a spatial difference that he points out, right? So this is a really interesting argument. And remember that he's written a really long book, and he decides on the first page to make this bold claim that the average person in the world of 1800 was no better off than the average person of 100,000 BC. And that's a big claim, and I think that's something that you could pick up on and perhaps say, no, I do agree, or yes, I do agree. I remember, of course, that this is a quite a qualitative thing. It's not necessarily something that's quantitative, because how can you say, how can we find the evidence, for example, for 100,000 BC to say that an average person in the world of 1800 was not living in better conditions than them? And I think always when you're doing economic history, you need to bear that kind of methodology of how you find, specific sources and data on people. Because the further back in time you go, the harder it's going to be to create an economic analysis of their conditions. And then again, you have a very bold claim, which I've highlighted. England and Netherlands compared to East and South Asia, for example, China and Japan. And these kind of very almost flowery statements like significantly poorer than those of cavemen, you can cite that, and I think that's quite a catchy thing to cite as well, because then you can argue if that were when you're writing your essay. So the most important thing out of this, and remember you can read this text in your own free time later, is this graph. So you can see he says there's a Malthusian trap from 1000 BC, and then there's a moment in 1800 where there's an industrial revolution and what he calls the Great Divergence. So income in some societies rising sharply, while in others it declines.